And we don't. It is, beyond a few people, a significant number of people, but a tiny minority of the population. It is completely uncharted waters, including, as you say, for the people charged with steering the nation through it. I'm struck by the pageantry and the almost Shakespearean echoes of a duke having control of the rigmarole, which I think is almost a technical term at times like this, and the offices that have these ancient titles, the nomenclature of royalty that is often just sort of bubbling away below the surface of our lives, and yet which now comes into its own. People like the Duke of Norfolk, again, spending much of their life in preparation for moments like this. And I think one of the things we must do today, Lisa, is, well, I can only speak for myself when I say educate myself. You may already be across all of the detail, but precisely what is meant by period of mourning, what we are expected to observe, what the time scale is now going to be for the ceremonies of state, for the gatherings, the masses, the coronations and the funerals that will now unfold. But I think we'll begin by crossing to Balmoral, which I mentioned a moment ago, and indeed surely to Buckingham Palace, where people are gathering, and where LBC's reporter, in the case of Balmoral, Alan Zaginski, is in situ. Alan, I suspect you're going to get asked several times in the coming days, and indeed you have been already, what exactly you're experiencing on the ground at Balmoral, where Her Majesty the Queen passed away yesterday afternoon.
So, the Queen is dead. Long live the King. King Charles III. We'll get to that. First things first though, I was watching this program. I was just reminded of it by the fact that the Queen died. As you can see, this is my new type of workout. I think it's fantastic, to be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of football as such, but now I'm going to start watching football again, which is like a bit tedious. So there was this program, as you can see the poster, called The English Game. And apparently it was, I'm not sure whether it was written or directed or produced by Gillian Fellows, who's responsible for Downton Abbey. So I'm guessing he must have written it, I don't know. Whatever other input he has. But that being the case, it's called The English Game. And football is associated with England, isn't it? It was created started created in England. And it goes back centuries, I suppose. As I said before, there's a part in Shakespeare, King Lear, where King Lear, somebody's insulting someone. I'm not sure whether it was King Lear himself who was insulting somebody, and called somebody a football player, as if to use that to describe what class they belong to. And football, in particularly as expressed by this production by Gillian Fellows, as Downton Abbey was also a bit like upstairs, downstairs, wasn't it? A sort of way of expressing the clash, or the not just clash, but the connection, the clash and connection between the classes in England. I don't want to say aristocracy as such, but the higher class and the middle class and lower classes of society in England. And that brings me to the subject of Queen Elizabeth, who died recently. I was actually listening to PMQs, which is Prime Minister's Questions, something I've been watching. I used to watch that thing when it was, you know how far back I've been watching that? I was watching it when it was 15 minutes before it got extended to 30 minutes. If you don't know, it used to be 2 times a week, Prime Minister's Questions, during the Margaret Thatcher era. It used to be 2 times a week. I think it was like on a Wednesday and a Friday, I'm not sure. And it used to be 15 minutes, okay? I think it was Tony Blair who compacted those 15 minutes into 30 minutes and became 1 day a week, which was a Wednesday. That's a bit of history for you. And I used to watch it religiously. I didn't watch it during the David Cameron or Theresa May or Boris Johnson years, you know what I'm saying? Because, I just didn't want to watch it during those conservative years. it is what it is. I used to watch it during the John Major years because Tony Blair was the opposition. So, in a way, I'm a bit of a lefty. It is what it is. So, so with the appointment of a new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, who beat Rishi Sunak, who anybody, I mean, if you're really thinking about it, I think not many people are going to say it, not many people are going to want to say it out loud, but they know that Rishi Sunak, regardless of how detrimental or how abhorrent you might find Conservative politics, in terms of being a true Tory and being the person most suited for the job, Rishi Sunak was probably the person they should have chosen. And you just get the feeling that they didn't choose him because, despite the fact that there's a particular nuance and shade and, dare I say, diverse appeal in Liz Truss's cabinet, regardless of that, you still feel that when you had a choice between Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak should have won. But that brings me to the topic, as a lefty who doesn't think that much of Tories, of a certain, I want to say contradiction, but I'm not sure it is, a certain contradiction that some lefties might have, or some lefties might experience when it comes to the topic of monarchy. I'm not going to say I'm a big supporter of monarchy, of the monarchy, but I don't mind it. Let me just put it this way. I don't really mind that the Queen is dead. But I also feel that the Queen was fantastic. I also feel that Charles gets a bad rap. I feel that the monarchy has been a fantastic connection to the historical past of England, and to get rid of it would be cultural vandalism, and I don't think it's worth paying that kind of price. I'd rather be under the sort of benign monarchy of the Elizabeth and Charles and maybe William after, than the kind of this sort of pretentious democracy that you have in Hungary under Viktor Orban, or what Trump was trying to impose in America, what they have in China with the Communist Party, or what they have in Russia with Putin. I'd rather have a monarchy, a head of state, being the monarchy that you have in Britain, than any of those things that you have there in Belarus or Myanmar, that used to be Burma, under the guise of being democratic, or even South Africa, or even anywhere around the world. So regardless of how you, and the House of Lords and all this stuff, and all this pomp and pageantry and the expense, I think the expense is worth it. I think the expense is worth it if what you're gonna get is this constant threat to democracy within particular democratic institutions around the world. Even in Scandinavia at the moment, there's a good chance that a lot of these right-wingers who do not like democracy, because democracy has democratized access to power for people who do not look like them. Alright? And you've got to be honest here. The only thing that's keeping democracy in place at the moment, as I see it, in these times, is in fact the fact that there is an electorate that doesn't simply abide by, doesn't go along with all this conviction, being convinced by propaganda that everything in the world that they do not agree with is woke. So for me, I think that Queen Elizabeth, being 96 or whatever, she lived a fantastic life. Not many people are gonna get to live that long. She had fantastic appeal. She was not ugly, she was not too beautiful. She was very simple. She always maintained this sort of 50s with a scarf across her head kind of appearance. She had trials and tribulations that you get in any other kind of family that were quite public. And I think that, yeah, that's a life worth celebrating. So for me, I don't have a problem with the monarchy. I wish him well. I wish Charles well. I'm a big fan of British history, and I just love British, from the Tudors to everything. So it is what it is. Some people might not appreciate that. I don't care. Fuck it.
National importance, there is of course also a sense of something the Queen understood perhaps better than anybody, of the world continuing to turn, of life continuing to go on. And we come together every morning to share our thoughts, to share our experiences, our stories, and occasionally our opinions, although we may perhaps put them on pause for the foreseeable future. And today, in some ways, will be no different. It's an odd experience, sitting here, reflecting upon something that everybody knew must happen, everybody knew would happen, everybody knew will happen. And yet when it did, it felt as if something was shaken. People unexpectedly feeling a profundity that this occasion demands. People who perhaps felt they didn't have a particular interest in the monarchy or a particular interest in the Queen herself find themselves surprisingly shaken by the disruption to normality, the disruption to everything we've ever known. For anybody pretty much under the age of 75, your conscious life in this country has included the Queen, the quiet presence, the silent constant, the unending